Fishing in Oklahoma's ponds and lakes used to be a way to relax and forget about the problems of everyday life. It used to be, that is, until a little over a year ago when it was learned that the fish in Fort Gibson Lake were contaminated with dangerous levels of cancer-causing PCBs. Because of that, the State Water Quality Laboratory took an unprecedented step. They started an investigation that took in 48 Oklahoma lakes. It took $170,000, 55 people, and over a year to complete. They were looking for contamination from such chemicals as PCB, chlordane, DDT, and arsenic. In the course of the investigation, Lake Hefner and the Zoo Lake were found to have high levels of the pesticide chlordane. Fishing is now restricted in those lakes as well as Fort Gibson. However, those are the only three. The contamination levels in the other 45 state lakes are well within federal limits.
I feel very good from the standpoint that we have found so many of our reservoirs to be almost totally free of any of these toxic chemicals. And I'm very pleased with the fact that the public is becoming more aware, that the regulatory agencies and manufacturers and that farmers are becoming more aware of the types of effects that we can expect if we're not more conscientious about the use of these chemicals.
The levels of toxic contamination of the lakes is low, but not non-existent. Out of 48, only 2 reservoirs, Greenleaf and Latonka, were completely free of detectable traces. Walker says the chemical PCB permeates our lives now, and that fact is borne out by the study. Only 4 lakes showed no traces of it. Dumping the chemical 2,4-D into Fort Cobb Lake hardly showed up in the test. However, that lake has the highest concentration in the state of the outlawed pesticide DDT. The traces are there, but Walker emphasizes they are not dangerously high. The state water quality labs will continue to monitor the level of toxic chemicals in Oklahoma lakes for years to come. But since many of those chemicals have been banned, Walker expects the levels to gradually go down over a period of years. In the meantime, it's nice to know that Oklahoma has safe water. Ted Brown, Action 4 from the shores of Lake Hefner.
This tape is only one of many that have been brought forth implicating county commissioners in illegal kickback schemes. To date, 91 county commissioners have pled guilty or agreed to plead guilty in the statewide scandal. Today, in a joint state, Senate, and House committee meeting, U.S. District Attorney David Russell and Assistant Bill Price addressed some of the current problems in county government. As Mr. Price pointed out, the current county system is operating without an adequate check and balance system. First off, he says the power in county government needs to be spread out more when it comes to paying out or receiving money. It's too easy for suppliers to create cash or phony invoices when dealing with one man who can sign the check. This area then links up with the problem in the current bidding system. County governments can accept the best bid, but not be bound to taking the best low bid. In addition, there is a $1,500 purchase ceiling that says a commissioner can buy something up to that amount without even going through bids. Another key to corruption is the current lease purchase agreement rather than a sale agreement. The lease purchase allows a lot of freedom. Price feels county governments need new legislation defining conflict of interest. Currently, travel, gifts, entertainment, and such is being abused and is not covered under bribery statutes. A great many areas need reform to prevent scandal from reoccurring in the future. Russell and Price both see a definite need for a division within the state that is authorized to deal with investigation of county agencies. The bottom line is that something needs to be done now, or in 5 years the whole scheme of corruption may begin turning again. Carol Lambert, Action 4, at the state capitol.
That's whatever you got, fine.
What, just plain quack?
Yeah, it's plain quack. Or any medications, any 31, just hit high blood pressure.
A bronze statue by the sculptor Rodin will come to life on stage in the Rupert Jones Theater at OU Friday night. The statue, The Burghers of Calais, inspired Norman playwright Sheila Lynch Golda to write the play Calais, the story of a French town under siege by Edward III of England. But inspiration alone did not put the words on paper. Research gave color to the figures of bronze and helped put the ideas on stage.
What starts as a possible idea and starts becoming more a probable idea as you do the research, and then develops into a story on paper. That's an exciting process in itself. But to go the step beyond and see it being put on stage and coming alive, it's exciting.
The OU show is the world premiere of Calais. Golda researched and wrote the play as her master's thesis. It was a project that took 2 years. Calais has been likened to The Lion in Winter, another historical drama about Henry II and his wife Eleanor, predecessors of Edward III. Well, the sculptor Rodin used literature to inspire his work. Golda has used Rodin to inspire her play, and she hopes to continue weaving the arts together. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4, in Norman, Oklahoma.
Call us rabble-rousers, but we deplore a city manager that has a pharaohic, Hitleristic approach to a simple problem of people wanting to work. We deplore a city manager that attempts to cover up racism with anti-labor words. Maybe you aren't racist, but we have also come to tell these sanitation workers, if they want to go to jail for the cause, we will fill the jails in Mississippi.
We received complaints from the
FBI agent Terry O'Connor says agents began work on the case several days ago when they received complaints of extortion from several Oklahoma City individuals.
The complaint charges that threats and extortion were used by Tyner and Smith against 2 former employees of Tyner in an effort to obtain shares of the breeding rights to a quarter horse named Special Effort. Special Effort won the All-American Futurity on Labor Day weekend after previously winning the Kansas Futurity and the Rainbow Futurity at Ruidoso, New Mexico. In winning the 3 races, it became the first quarter horse to win the Triple Crown of quarter horse racing. The complaint charges that the attempts to obtain the shares were made at far below the current market value, which had increased considerably after Special Effort's most recent win.
Quarter horse broker Calvin Tyner and his associate Howard Smith were arrested at Tyner's Oklahoma City office. They appeared before the magistrate and were released on a $50,000 bond. If convicted, Tyner and Smith face a maximum sentence of 20 years and possibly a $10,000 fine. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
Listen. He said if he sees one police officer comes up here, he'll shoot the hostage.
Law enforcement agencies took the threat seriously. They had to. The suspect inside had a pistol-grip rifle trained on a man who moments ago was spending a routine evening with his family. So police stayed out of sight, but they didn't back off. The Special Weapons and Tactical Team was called in, but they too stayed close to the block-wide perimeter police formed around the house. It all started about 5:30 with an armed robbery at a Del City convenience store. As the two suspects raced through city streets, Del City police units gave chase, and there were gun battles at two different locations. One suspect was captured, but the other escaped into Oklahoma City limits. He walked into a house at random, taking one man, his wife, and small child hostage. Shortly after that, he released the mother and child, but kept the husband as a shield. As evening turned into night, the victim's wife checked for news of her husband at the police command post. All they could tell her was that they would do their best to get him out alive.
Let me have a break, good fire. Break that record. They're shooting down there.
At 3:30 this morning, the suspect let police know he wasn't going to make that easy for them. The night-long negotiations didn't work. He made a break for it. He made the victim dress like himself to confuse the SWAT sharpshooters. He tied himself to his hostage with a belt at their wrists. But when he tried jumping a fence with his victim, the belt came loose. The hostage ducked, police opened fire, and the suspect returned it.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
So that he's here. He's
Still got a handgun.
still got a handgun though.
As he fled into a grassy field, he dropped his weapon, but there was still danger. Meanwhile, two police officers had rescued the hostage from the midst of automatic weapon fire. An exhausted Peter Cho was soon reunited with his relieved wife.
Peter, you okay?
Yeah.
You feel okay?
Just need some rest.
What did he do to you?
Well, he didn't really do anything to me. He just wanted me to help him to get out of here.
Did you help talk to him, negotiate with him, just to keep him calm? What types of things did you say?
I just told him that I'd help him as much as I could try to get out of here. That way he might.
But you feel okay, right?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. I never heard a description on it. Black, white,
No, he's white. White, 26 years old, 6 foot, 160, brown hair, full beard, wearing dungaree shorts, blue jeans.
Search continued for the suspect just north of Southeast 59th Street and west of Sunny Lane. Dogs were brought out to help track him, and an hour after the gun battle started, they found him hiding in the field.
Which car? We haven't patted him down yet.
Take him down. Has he been hurt?
He's got me hit.
Lift there. He's hitting her. Okay.
26-year-old Danny Ray Saunders was wounded in the hip. Saunders walked away from the medium security prison in Taft last July. He was serving more than 30 years on 2 armed robbery convictions in Oklahoma County.
And I'm thankful the hostage is safe. I'm glad my officers did not shoot when they come out of the door because they could not tell at the time which was a hostage and which was a defendant. And I'm just happy it ended like it is. We'll have the man on the way to the hospital and have him treated.
Ted Brown, Action 4 in Southeast Oklahoma City. day across the state. Different methods are used to do that, but now a bill passed by the legislature makes either a carbon monoxide gas chamber or the drug sodium phenobarbital mandatory. Norman animal control officers had used sequestrin, which they say was cheaper than sodium phenobarbital, but just as effective, bringing death to the animal without pain. They say the animals suffer in gas chambers, but there are also problems with the one available drug.
The sodium phenobarbital is a real thick solution, like Karo syrup or something, and so it has to be given real slow, which causes more danger because you have to hold on to the animal a long time while you inject him in this, and they didn't leave us enough options. They need to leave some other outs there so that cities that can afford it, a lot of cities simply would not be able to afford sodium phenobarbital. I feel real fortunate that our city has put the money up for that rather than the carbon monoxide chamber, because I think the carbon monoxide chamber is probably worse than sodium phenobarbital.
Peterson says that only 10 to 15% of these animals are ever adopted, so the controversy continues on how to dispose of the other 85%. But he also says that wouldn't be a problem if people would just pay the nominal fee that it takes to get their animals neutered or spayed. Ted Brown, Action 4 from the Norman Animal Shelter.
To understand the recent gyrations in the international stock market, you need to be part economist and part psychologist. Now, the economics is pretty straightforward, and it has to do primarily with high interest rates in the United States. High interest rates in this country attract funds from overseas. Why should an Englishman invest at 12% in London when he could get, say, 18% in New York? The psychology of the situation is equally interesting and probably more important. It works like this. Suppose that you have some stock and you expect prices to be lower in the future. Now, if you really believe that, you have a clear incentive to go out and sell that stock right now. If enough people believe it, of course, a lot of people sell stock, and stock prices, in fact, come down. We have a classic example of a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's what happened yesterday on the European and Japanese exchanges. But what about today? Interestingly enough, stock prices have come back up. Why? Interest rates in the U.S. have not come down, but market psychology has reversed. It turns out that on Blue Monday, all we had to fear was fear itself. I'm Will Clark, and that's the bottom line.
No, because of the involvement with a male subject. The girls were apparently approached by a male subject and offered money incentives to do jobs here at the fair. Girls were last seen with this male at a truck stop, 800 block on Council Road, and they haven't been seen since by anyone that we've been able to confirm with.
What should people do if they recognize the girls?
They should, if possible, latch on to the little girls and hold on to them. I would recommend that. If not, to contact the police department immediately.
Let me first set up the case that brought this 20-year-old man to trial. It is an unusual one because if he committed the crime, he did so wearing a ski mask over his face the entire time. His defense attorneys are going to try and show there is no way you can prove he did it.
A burglary took place in this home the morning of August 27th. Someone wearing a ski mask ransacked the house and tied up one of its occupants, keeping her a sort of hostage for 3 hours. But when homeowner Tom Chambers arrived, the suspect fled on foot through a field, leaving evidence and a trail behind. A search failed to produce the suspect, but later, an abandoned car in the area linked police to 20-year-old Samuel Clayton Wilhoit. Today, a preliminary hearing was held for the man. Evidence was brought in to link him to the crime. A key item was a brown ski mask. An OSBI criminologist testified that hair samples found in the mask matched the hair samples of Wilhoit. And the woman who was tied up, Susan Cook, presented testimony that that was indeed the mask the burglar was wearing. Judge Leonard Gebb decided the evidence was enough to bring Will Hoyt to trial. The arraignment has been set for October 6th. His defense attorneys will say there's just not enough evidence to positively link him to the crime, that even the hair samples don't prove anything conclusively. Bella Shaw, Action 4 at the county courthouse.
If federal income taxes are withheld from your paycheck, you can expect a modest increase in take-home pay. A 5% cut in personal income taxes will make most people's paychecks a little fatter each week. For example, a single person with a $15,000 taxable income will save about $29 in 1981, while someone with taxable income of $25,000 will save about $63. The annual tax savings comes out to less than 5% for 1981. That's because the tax reduction doesn't take effect until the year's final quarter.
It's a 5% tax cut, but since this 5% cut is only over the last 3 months of the year, basically that amounts to a 1.25% overall decrease in tax liability to the taxpayer for the entire year. If you spread out the 5% tax cut for the whole year, or the 1.25% tax cut for the whole year would amount to 5% overall.
The tax bite will be further reduced by 10% next July. The final 10% cut will be phased in July 1st of 1983. Scott Wallace, Action 4.
U.S. Attorney David Russell is still celebrating his victory in the kickback trial of former Oklahoma County Commissioner J.P. Dick Richardson. He is awaiting the return of a grand jury to indict more county commissioners in Oklahoma on mail fraud and extortion charges. In a surprise move, Richardson and his attorney, Dwayne Miller, decided to plead no contest. 4 days into the trial, Judge Luther Eubanks accepted the plea change, but will consider it the same as if Richardson had been found guilty. Even though Richardson is out of federal court now, he may find himself back in court. There is a possibility Richardson will face civil charges to force him to pay back the county all the money he allegedly received in kickback payments. And that action will have to take place in district court. Any reimbursement would be in addition to Richardson paying any fines he must pay to the federal government. Those fines could be as much as $24,000. Oklahoma County District Attorney Bob Macy says he definitely intends to see what Richardson may owe the county.
I have been waiting until the Richardson matter was disposed of to make a decision. I'm going to check with the U.S. Attorney, review his files, and if there is proof there that Commissioner Richardson did take kickbacks and that suppliers received kickbacks, I'll then look at the possibility of recovering those, and if it looks like we can, well, then I'll file a proper legal action to recover that money.
Macy has agreed to talk with Richardson's attorney before any charges are formally filed. Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Oklahoma County District Court.
This is Fire Prevention Week across the country, and to kick it off, Tinker Air Force Base hosted the first annual fire drill competition. 4 fire departments competed in the show: Oklahoma City, Midwest City, Del City, and the hosting Tinker department. The drills themselves were well planned.
When you get to the top, block in, there's a piece of tape up on the building. Grab the tape, pull it off, come back down, rung by rung, retract the ladder, and bring it back to the street.
Quickness under pressure is a part of the firefighters' everyday lives, and as the groups prepared for the race, each wanted to prove that they were the best.
I just like it. Competition, competing against somebody else. The more the merrier. They could have 10 crews out here. It wouldn't bother me. I might not win, but I give it 110.
I think we can handle them just from our normal training.
I hope we're ready. About as ready as the other ones, I guess. Get set, go.
The idea behind running a ladder up the wall and rescuing tape isn't to save lives through action. The players and the organizers hope to remind the public of fire prevention. Fire prevention can save lives more easily than firefighting. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4.
Anwar Sadat was 59 years old when he undertook what he called his sacred mission to Israel with an offer of peace. It took only 28 minutes for the flight to Tel Aviv's Ben Gurion airport, but in that one bold stroke, Sadat changed the entire future of the Middle East. The old rules calling for an Egyptian-Israeli blood feud no longer applied. Bold and resolute enemies were there to greet him: Moshe Dayan, Yitzhak Rabin, Golda Meir. The faces he saw all looked friendly, although he was looking at the same people against whom he had hurled his armies across the Suez Canal in 1973. Sadat's quest for peace had struck a responsive chord in the emotions of Israelis and Egyptians alike. Golda Meir had a present for the Egyptian grandfather to take home to his grandchild. In Old Jerusalem, Sadat fulfilled a vow he had made to pray in Al-Aqsa Mosque, one of Islam's holiest shrines. The most amazing sight of all was President Sadat, Israel's sworn enemy, as the honored guest of the Knesset, the Israeli parliament.
I carry to you the message of peace.
Achieving peace was not an easy task. One meeting did not immediately cancel years of mistrust between enemies. There were vast differences in their ways of life, and there was fear on both sides. When the peace talks bogged down, President Carter invited Sadat and Begin to join him at Camp David, the president's retreat in the Maryland mountains. The United States was now involved as a full partner, and together the three parties worked out a tentative peace agreement. Anwar Sadat had been trying for many years to get more direct United States involvement in the Middle East. With this partnership, another of his dreams had come true. He paid tribute to President Carter.
Dear President Carter, in this historic moment, I would like to express to you my heartfelt congratulations and appreciation.
10 months later, President Carter went to the Middle East to help again in the peace talks, which appeared to be having problems. Sadat never really wavered in his conviction that peace would be achieved. He minimized the so-called problems.
I think we are on the verge of an agreement.
With a treaty assured, Anwar Sadat returned to the village of his birth, Mit Abul Kum. He prayed with the villagers. There was another reason for his return. He visited the grave of his brother, who had been killed in the Israeli fighting.
In the first 5 minutes of the October War, he died, but now we can say not in vain.
March 26, 1979, the culmination of Anwar Sadat's search for peace. He joined Prime Minister Begin and President Carter at the White House to sign the Articles of a Peace Agreement.